So, I have a bit of a confession to make. I've never seen Fight Club. Or rather, I had never seen Fight Club until very recently. Oh sure, I knew about Fight Club, and I'd heard it's a great movie and book. I knew the memes and the references thanks to the wonderful world of the internet. But I'd never really looked into it, nor had I ever really cared to actually watch it. It wasn't until recently that I felt like I actually wanted to see this cult classic to try and understand what all the hype was about. And boy oh boy was I completely unready for what I was walking into. Fight Club says so much without running its mouth. It reveals a part of the human psyche and lets you dwell on the implications without being preachy or too full of itself. It speaks on society and masculinity in a way that most stories seem to avoid these days. It felt raw and it felt real. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In this video, I want to look at some specific aspects of the Fight Club movie and its philosophy. I want to try and deconstruct what this movie was trying to say and why we should consider listening. There will obviously be full spoilers. If you haven't seen this movie yet, go ahead and watch it. I give it my full recommendation now. And now that we have that out of the way, let's dive fully into the philosophy of Fight Club. What I find really interesting about Fight Club is that the main character isn't even named. In the movie's credits, you just get told he's the narrator. I even watched the movie a second time and deliberately kept an ear out for any mention of a name, but it's never mentioned at all. Have you ever noticed that there's almost a standard template for anime protagonists? This may seem like a tangent, but bear with me for a moment. If you've watched a couple of anime shows in the past, you may have noticed a strange pattern of similarity between the protagonists of many of these shows. It's almost like the main character was deliberately crafted to a set of parameters instead of being an organic character with his own desires and ambitions. The standard male protagonist in anime is a slender, tallish guy in his mid to late teens. He often has dark hair and a friendly personality. He's well liked by many people and is very kind, but is picked on by one or many other people because of some aspect about himself that he can't control. He's a bit nerdy and clumsy at first, but eventually becomes incredibly powerful. He has girls fawning over him, but he somehow manages to miss all the hints and advances. Do you see it? He's the wish fulfillment character of almost any teenage boy, the prime demographic for most shonen anime. He's the diamond in the rough with potential because all teenage boys hope to be the same. He's barely got any personality because it allows the viewer to more easily see himself in the protagonist's shoes. It's a blank slate they can project their personality onto. He has girls fawning over him because teenage boys want girls that fawn over them too. It's generalized, but you get the point. Male anime protagonists are blank slates for their target audience to imprint themselves on. Now you have the protagonist of Fight Club. He's also a blank slate character meant to draw the viewer into seeing themselves in his shoes. He doesn't even have a name, so imprinting on him should be even easier. But that leaves a crucial question unanswered. What kind of audience is this aimed at? Who is meant to imprint themselves on this character? What traits does he have that would act as a magnet for people in a similar situation? Well, I don't think it would be controversial to say that this movie is aimed at a primarily male audience. And given that the movie has an age limit of about 16, it's definitely not for kids. But for more detail, we need to look a bit deeper at some of the themes and points raised within the narrative of the film itself. Almost right off the bat, we get introduced to the narrator through a monologue about his apartment. He's bought all the exact furniture he needs along with all the right cutlery and crockery. He's the modern American man with all the comforts of life promised to the average worker in the mid-90s. The film sets up a critique of consumerism early on. He mentions he's spending in a neutral, almost happy way, but you can tell it's suffocating him. He's chained and trapped by the very consumer goods he thought would bring him comfort and fulfillment. When his apartment is destroyed, he barely cares, and when he settles into a derelict house that's nearly falling apart, he actually begins to seem happier. On top of the critique of consumerism, you also have a critique of his socially stunted environment. He has no friends, you never meet a relative, and when his social isolation and captivity via materialism drives him into a state of perpetual insomnia, where does he turn? Do we see him meet with a friend to unload? Does he call up a family member to just de-stress and relax? No. We see him go to trauma groups and 12-step programs. Not because he actually has any of these debilitating diseases and problems, but because he's pretending, and crying with the group provides a release. He achieves some kind of mental catharsis by faking a disease and seeking a sympathetic shoulder to cry on. Above all, we get the sense that this narrator is kind of lost. He's adrift in this world. He takes no control and expends no effort into anything beyond material goods and an artificial emotional release. Consumerism, isolation, escapism, and seeking emotional release via artificial means. These are the things that define our narrator within just the setup of the movie. Now, I'm probably not the only one to point this out, but there is a striking similarity between the narrator of Fight Club and many men online right now. So many men are lost, isolated, desperately seeking some kind of escape or emotional release, while all drowning in their misery and material goods and unrestrained consumerism. This isn't some strange new phenomenon, nor is it something that's novel or interesting to anyone who's been around the internet for a while. But what should grab your attention is what happens to the narrator, because it also spells out exactly what could happen to the average guy when he's been numbed to this level and pushed to the edge. There's an almost predictable pattern that the narrator shares with many online men who find themselves in a similar position. It is the pattern undertaken by many men around the world, but that is somehow lost from our Western sensibilities. When we look at examples from around the globe, this pattern expresses itself as a series of actions that help transition a man from a coddled, repressed child into a productive member of society. But when we look at our current society and we notice the lack of these actions, we also notice that our children never become men, and if they do, they can sometimes bring destruction and violence in their wake. I am talking, of course, about the rite of passage. Fight Club is ultimately a film about the modern Western man's rite of passage, going from child to man through a trial by fire. And once the man is on the other side, he has it within him to tear down society and remake it in his image. And that's exactly what Tyler Durden does. Our narrator's entire life gets turned upside down when he meets a rebellious young man by the name of Tyler Durden. Tyler is everything our protagonist isn't, and is everything the narrator wishes he could be. In a word, Tyler Durden is free. Our narrator is trapped by the chains of modern life, stuck in a perpetual cycle of mundane work, followed by a mundane television, and capped off by a night of restless to no sleep. Tyler lives as he wants, does what he wants, and talks to who he wants. This is everything the narrator wants and needs, but his captivity is completely inescapable. Until it isn't. His apartment gets blown to pieces by what he first assumes is a gas leak, but later finds out was a controlled demolition. In his destitution, he approaches Tyler Durden for a place to crash while he gets his affairs in order. The two, quite literally, hit it off, and thus Fight Club is born. The trauma groups become a thing of the past. The narrator no longer needs to cry on the shoulder of a stranger in order to not feel dead inside. He's able to process his emotions not through the weak release of false tears, but through the fiery catharsis of raw combat. Every punch given is a pent-up emotion released, and every punch taken is a barrier of social isolation broken down. Through Fight Club, he also forms his first real bond. He befriends Tyler Durden and actually comes more out of his shell. He starts engaging more with those around him and starts forming a bond of brotherhood. The entire process creates a bond between him and others, something he's been sorely lacking. So if we take all these elements, all these instances of the narrator breaking free, what do we have? We have the initiation, the first domino to fall, if you will, by his meeting with Tyler Durden and the subsequent destruction of his apartment. He's ripped from his world of coddled safety and forcefully plunged into the world of danger and adversity. But then comes the next element. Instead of cowering in fear of his new circumstances, he learns to fight them head on. He takes a proactive and aggressive stance against the forces that would beat him down and choke him out. And finally, through his experience comes the final piece of the puzzle. He begins to find brotherhood and friendship through his hardship and struggles. The narrator forms bonds of the kind that he has never experienced before. So we have the snapping of the chains and the man being ripped from the old world, the trial by fire and subsequent catharsis, and finally the bonded brotherhood that results from all of this. The way I see it, this is his rite of passage. This is the ritual our protagonist must undergo to go from weak man-child to fearless barbarian willing to face the world and form brotherly bonds. The entire sequence of events is the forging of a man from the clay that was a child. And it's in this rite of passage that the protagonist learns his ultimate lesson: the satisfaction of catharsis brought on by a trial of fire. Undergoing a trial by fire, that is, building the plane as you fly it, is the ultimate expression of masculine virtue. One can prepare and plan as much as you want, but at some point you will have to take action. Planning, preparing, and strategizing can only be done to a point. After that, it just becomes mental masturbation. And when you finally start doing, you find out that there are simply things you couldn't plan for. No matter what the endeavor is, there will be rogue elements and unforeseen circumstances that throw a wrench in your plans. You can't factor in every variable when you're planning, so trying to avoid this is complete futility. So, to go into something with absolutely no planning, just tenacity, grit, and raw ambition would be the ultimate test. This time there was no planning, there was no preparation, no strategizing, there was pure action. This is the trial by fire our narrator had to undergo. His first obstacle was Fight Club itself. Think about it. He has no combat training or experience, he has no social circle, no medical insurance, no safe and secure home. Despite this, he just enters into the ring to fight and give it his all. It's not about winning. It's not about making it a good fight. It's not even about improving as a fighter. All it's about is facing the punches and fighting back. When life or another fighter throws a punch your way, can you take it? And more importantly, can you punch back? It's not about winning or fighting well or getting better. It's about standing your ground and dishing out what you can take. This simple core idea is what an entire movement gets built around. It's such a resonant idea with the men around him that multiple Fight Club groups spread out in multiple cities. The desire to take a punch and punch back, both physically and metaphorically, becomes the central pillar to this movement. And it was all built through a trial by fire. No planning, no preparing, just punch and be punched. But the narrator went beyond just that. He brought the punches into his own life. For example, his home was blown up. Problem? Nope, he hunkers down in a decrepit collapsing building overrun by mold and without proper plumbing or electricity. It's not about luxury. It's not even about comfort. It's about taking the curveball of homelessness that was thrown his way and turning it into something that strengthens him. He could cry, he could whine, he could even get a different place to stay. But instead, he chooses to stay in squalor and prove himself. Life punched him, so he punched back. He didn't plan for better living arrangements, nor did he strategize to fix the place he was living in. He went in, took the punches, and decided to live well despite the circumstances that surrounded him. Consumerism be damned. And finally, there's Project Mayhem. This one is something that gets planned out, but its purpose is still a trial by fire. Not for the men that execute Project Mayhem, but for the people of the world that have to deal with the consequences of Project Mayhem. The plan is to destroy all financial records and bring the world back to zero. Nobody gets to prepare, nobody gets to plan, nobody gets to opt out. The world will go back to zero whether you like it or not. Your life of luxury and comfort is over. Now you must perform, achieve, thrive. It's up to you to become greater than you were, because nobody else will be there to hold your hand. All of these things tell me that this is the primary lesson that the narrator took out of his coming-of-age ritual, his rite of passage. He learned the value of a trial by fire. He learned the value of making something from nothing. He learned that there is catharsis in survival and fighting back against the forces that seek to subjugate and suffocate. I'm not saying that what he did was good or moral or even acceptable. I bring no value judgments to this. What I'm saying though is that the narrator found a way to face the void and smile. He, through his rite of passage and trial by fire, found a way to conquer fear, uncertainty, and doubt. He went from a child to a man by allowing himself to be forged in the flames of adversity. He learned to release the animal within him. He found a way to unleash the beast that resides in every man. He freed his inner demon, or rather, he freed his inner Tyler. A video discussing Fight Club and its philosophy would be incomplete without at least addressing the anomaly that is Tyler Durden. So as it turns out, Tyler Durden was actually the narrator all along. The narrator had, essentially, some kind of split personality. Somehow his psyche realized he was in a rut, trapped by circumstance and life. And realizing he wouldn't do anything about it, a second player had to be introduced. A wildcard that would shake things up. That wildcard was Tyler Durden. Tyler is symbolic for the wildcard that resides in all of us. There lives within each man a capacity for both creation and destruction. There is the potential for great growth as well as great decline. One can either become someone who values and follows virtue, or someone who values and follows vice. Tyler Durden represents the part of the man that gets repressed. It's his wild inner nature. It's the capacity for violence and destruction. Tyler Durden represents the ability of man to let go of control. Letting go of control is honestly rather scary. Being able to look life in the face, seeing what comes your way, and lifting your hand from the wheel is absolutely terrifying. But what is profound is how it's framed. You always see those movies where the protagonist is an uptight stick in the mud who learns how to let go and magically solves all the problems. Well, this is not that kind of movie. It says, through Tyler Durden, that it is both good and healthy to let go. It is both freeing and natural to be able to let go and allow things to happen, because you can't possibly hope to control everything. But that doesn't mean things will work out. It doesn't mean that the problems go away or sort themselves out. Your life doesn't magically start falling into place when you learn to let go. The value of letting go isn't that it will improve your material life. The value of letting go is that it will eliminate within you the fear, stress, and anxiety that comes with an obsession to control everything. The value is in the action itself, not necessarily the results. I've tried very hard not to talk about stoicism in this video since I'm not trying to insert my own life philosophy into every video I make. But I do want to mention that this is essentially the dichotomy of control. I go into more detail in my video on the past mistakes of Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, so check it out if you haven't yet. The point is that there is value in learning to let go. This is what Tyler Durden represents. He is the beast within every man telling them to let go, telling them not to let fear control them, telling them that they can't control everything, and that's okay because each man has within himself the ability to face life head on. The narrator finally realizes and accepts this when Tyler Durden is ultimately killed and consumed back into his own psyche. He has no further need for Tyler Durden because he is Tyler Durden. He has fused with Tyler and they've become one in the same. The capacity to let go and face life is no longer externalized, but is rather within himself. Tyler Durden appeared to wake him up, and when Tyler's job was done, he left. Fight Club has many themes. It tackles ideas around men and them being caged and controlled and how they can free themselves. It wrestles with the concept that men have both the capacity for creation and destruction. It teaches that men must be creatures of both instinct and reason. I tried to condense the primary things I picked up from Fight Club in this video, but there are endless angles you could attack this movie from. What I do want to emphasize though is that Fight Club sends a warning. Most of us can watch the movie and appreciate the philosophy behind it. We can theorize and look at it through an objective lens, but never really be compelled to do things we see in the movie itself. But there are men out there who will do what the men of Project Mayhem does. There are men out there who feel trapped, controlled and caged with no way out. There are men out there who have their own Tyler Durdens telling them to lash out at the society that has tossed them aside. Fight Club shows us both the creation and destruction, but I fear we will soon see some of the nasty side effects that comes from a generation of disaffected men with no hope of creation and tons of desire for destruction. This is a topic that could be a whole video on its own, and it isn't the point of this video, so I'll leave it at that. Just be aware that Fight Club speaks to a core pillar of masculine identity that resonates with a lot of men for a reason. I'm not saying the movie will make people do dumb things. I'm saying the movie explains why some men will end up doing dumb things. It's a warning, and it's up to us if we want to take it seriously or not. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate the time you've given me in watching the video. If you enjoyed it and would like to support the channel in some way, consider hitting the like button and subscribing, since that tells YouTube to promote it and share the video with more people. Anyway, take care and we'll talk again very soon.